So we all love the Second Amendment. We all love it. We love our guns. And we love our guns not only because they're fun, they're good to collect, they look awesome. Styrog just chilling in the background. But our Second Amendment protects the First and all of the others. If you don't have your Second Amendment to back up your First, and someone says, hey, you can't say that, what the fuck are you going to do about it? It's you against the military. It's you against militarized police. So when push comes to shove and you are facing overthrowing tyrannical government, overthrowing militarized police, what are you going to do? You're going to lose, is what's going to happen. Realistically, I am too. But I'm going to fight tooth and fucking nail. And I will kill and I will die for it. Simple as that. So this video is addressing the whole statement of my pistol is just a means for me to get to my rifle. Okay, so you got home, you got to your rifle. Someone 600 yards away. Are you going to make a first round hit? Or are you going to take a shot and let everyone know exactly where you are? How about 7 guys at 400 yards? Are you going to lay them to waste, or are you going to let them know exactly where you are? Your other option is they have your address, they have GPS, they show up at your door. Are you going to stand there with a 308? In my opinion, throw the rifle to the wayside and grab yourself a nice shotgun. Because if you don't know how to use a rifle, you're waiting for the threat to come to you. If the threat's already there, you're fucked. And in my honest opinion, if you're at home where they're going to be looking for your guns, you fucked up in the first place and you're gonna lose. That said, this is kind of an intro to how to implement a long range or semi-long range semi-automatic battle rifle. This is like the most basic cut and dry how-to on getting those rounds out from 0 to 8-ish 100 yards and actually making them count, because a shot missed at 40 yards is no different than a shot missed at 800 yards. The only difference is you're going to be found out quicker. I understand the implications of this video and how a lot of people are going to see this, because the way that I addressed the purpose behind the FN57 and your guys' reaction to what ammunition I was carrying. Why would you say that you carry the most lethal ammunition because you want to actually destroy your adversary? What the fuck do you think we carry guns for? This isn't loaded with ball ammo. You know, like, I'm not sure where your guys' minds are on this whole, like, why you're carrying a gun thing, but if it's not for stopping somebody, please put your gun down. Step over to the left-hand side. You shouldn't be carrying. This is about killing people. There's not going to be any talk of zombies or rogue artificial intelligence or whatever the fuck else you want to think, or Russia's invaded. Somehow they got past our borders and now there's Russians, fucking troops storming our streets. This is about fighting our own government. This is about fighting militarized police whose agenda is to infringe and take your Second Amendment rights away. If you guys are applying this knowledge to an AR platform or to anything else, everything is so similar between the AR-10 or a variant thereof that I still feel comfortable putting this information out there, because it all pretty much uses the same parts. The trigger install is exactly the same, it's just different sizes. So, onto the build. We want to build a long-range precision rifle. Let's get started. All right, well, that's a good choice. Let's say something that's meant for, under 2,000 yards and costs less than $10,000. Getting warmer. Liking the BDC reticle. Perhaps not 5.56, perhaps not 30 pounds. So let's move on to something a little more powerful. We're getting closer. How about something with some magnification and maybe a BDC? Got the BDC on there. It's only 3.5 power. Not quite. And again, we need a little bit more magnification. Okay. Got the close and long range part down, but no. This is an FN. I don't like how I did that. Alright guys, this is the FN. What comes after FN? A, B, C, D, E, F, N, H. Okay, got it, okay. Take 12. This is the FN Herstal SCAR 17S. Of all the times for there to be an airstrike in Bonnie Lake, it happens when I'm filming. High quality mag. Manual, lock, a whole bunch of other stuff that you're about to see. Was that really necessary? SCAR 17S. Beautiful. Somebody on Facebook likes me. Just kidding, nobody does. Alright. Let's put that somewhere to save it. My wife will be really happy about that. Okay, SCAR 17S. So let's start with things that I'm going to change immediately. First order of business, get the UGG boot off. Step 1, choose your new stock. I went with KDG, Kinetic Development Group. I have had great success with all of their products thus far, and I love them. Step 1, don't try and do this in front of a camera because it's going to be insanely difficult. Step 2, remove your magazine, make sure the weapon is clear. Step 3, drop your rifle. Weapon is clear. Step 4, takedown pin. Step 5, slide receiver forward, down and off. Step 6, separate UGG boot. And for those of you guys who have not seen this before, honestly, seriously, UGG boot. That looks so much better. Alright, not gonna lie, this confused me. It looked like it was supposed to go in addition to this somehow. This is actually just a piece for adapting this to run on the ACR. So, you don't need that. This just slides on like this. Make sure that your spring and buffer are out of the way. Now it's on. Now we take our lower, up and rear pressure, pop your takedown pin out, and now we no longer have an UGG boot. Quick side by side, yeah, it looks a lot better. In case you were wondering, all of this will apply to the 16S as well, which is still wearing the UGG boot. Okay, very similar to your wife. These two rear holes that are not being used, I'm going to stuff a mount in. Also made by KDG. This is their QD mount. They have supplied us with extra screws that are a little bit longer and red Loctite, so I'm going to assume it's safe to use my own red Loctite because I don't want to dick around with those little packets that explode and get it on my carpet. I'm just kind of rolling this around to get that thread locker spun onto the screws, and I'm actually going to dab off the excess. Start that one in. Get our rear one in. QD mount is installed. I doubt I'll ever use it, but it bugged me that it was an option and I didn't have one. Ew. So, how do we fix that? Geissele Super Scar. I'm going to save you guys the time. Go check out another video. I'm sure there's lots of great information out there, and I want to make this as short as possible. Stage 1. So much better. Reset should take me to the first of the 2 stages, and it does. Take up and pressure, pressure, pressure. Break. No creep, feels incredible. Totally worth the $325. Even though they work incredibly great, I do find them completely hideous. They're way too long for what they are, and most importantly, I can't attach my suppressor to this. Focus, you fucker. I will be using the Silencer.Co Spec War flash hider because that's the can that I'm going to be running. 19mm wrench. Muzzle device is off. This rear nut is used for timing. I'm going to test fit my new one with a crush washer and see if I actually need to use this or not. I realize that this nut is actually meant to shoulder up on the barrel. Don't really care. Silencer.Co provides what's called Rockset, and my understanding is it's some form of ceramic that's meant to withstand heat, unlike, let's say, red Loctite, for example. So you can heat it up all you want, and you're not going to be able to break this loose. The only way to break this compound down is either with ice or water. So you either have to freeze your barrel and then shatter it after it's cured, or you have to soak it in boiling water. So I'm going to take the flash hider back off, make sure my threads are completely clean, apply this stuff, and torque this back down. Got the EOTech Voodoo all mounted in a QD. Here we are at shooter's perspective, 1 power. Looks like your standard EOTech reticle. Let's turn it on. 65 MOA circle. It's not fuzzy or grainy like your standard EOTech. Now let's zoom in. Oh yeah. So, when we're zoomed in, we have a usable Milrad scale. Now for fun, let's turn the power off. Pretend that we didn't have a battery. Go from 6 back down to 1 power. So why not just go with a standard BDC? Why not just spend the money on an ACOG? That's fine and great if you are running M80 ball. Even then with an ACOG, your bullet drop compensation and all of your hash marks, they're kind of close. Yeah, an ACOG could get you there, but again, that's with M80 ball. We're not in the military, we're not using M80 ball. Well, I'm not. You might be. If you are, go ahead and use an ACOG. You are staring at my ammo selection. You are staring at the reason I'm not using a BDC and the reason that I'm going with Milrads. So, we have 7 boxes of Federal Gold Medal Match, and you're looking at about $1,400. Okay, that's a lot of money. That's about $1 a round. Well, when you consider the fact that M80 ball which is the standard USGI ammo, is about 80 cents a piece. Is it worth that extra 20 cents a round? Well, out of my SCAR, I get about 3 MOA with M80 ball, which is 3 inches at 100 yards. It's about the best I can do. With Federal Gold Medal Match, I'm getting about a half of an inch at 100 yards. So let's extrapolate that to 1,000 yards. At 1,000 yards, that's a hit somewhere in a 30-inch radius. Now, with a half MOA, that's 5 inches at 1,000 yards. So the difference between 80 cents a round and $1 a round is a complete miss at 1,000 or a dead center hit at 1,000. In my opinion, if you're going to spend 80 cents, you might as well round it up to the nearest dollar and get the best ammunition you could possibly buy. Here we are back at the rifle. There's a couple of things about it that you're absolutely 100% going to have to know if you are going to make those hits at 600, 700, 800 yards. Number one is scope height. So what we're trying to find is the distance of the center of our scope to the center of our barrel. So we know exactly how high the center of our reticle is over the center of the inside of our barrel. Being as we cannot bifurcate the barrel, what we're doing is we're measuring the thickness of both the barrel and the scope, and we're going to divide that by 2. Yes, I'm wearing gloves again. Some of you guys are like, fuck the haters, just do your thing, who cares that you have tattoos? Some of you are like, oh my god, that's so absolutely disgusting, I couldn't even watch your video because your hands are so distracting. I just leave it out of the narrative. People have a lot nicer things to say about people wearing gloves than people with tattoos. So, first thing that we're going to need is a caliper. I prefer digital because I suck at reading dials. Thickness of our scope. Mine is exactly 1.2 inches. The second measurement we're going to need is the thickness of our barrel. Ironically, well, okay, where does this information go? Right there. This is the most important thing about the entire build. What I personally like to do is go to the back and use my last page as a reference guide. Once I know my actual numbers, I probably won't need them again, but if I change my scope for some reason, it might be good to know. So I'm going to write down my barrel thickness and my scope thickness. Okay, so now I have my barrel and my scope, and yes, I know that I have the handwriting of an autistic 6-year-old. Now we need to know the distance between the top of the scope to the bottom of the barrel. So to make this as simple as possible for me, I'm going to utilize my quick detach, and I'm going to move the scope to the front of the barrel so this overhangs as much as possible and I can actually get a measurement. Other option is trying to figure out how to measure from the center of this to somewhere inside of here that's going to be this. It's just not going to work out for you. It might, and you might be some magical, mythical measuring god, but that's not going to be a close enough measurement, in my opinion, at least. That's about as close as I could get it. Luckily, the barrel right here is the same thickness as it is here, so I'm going to be measuring from the top of the scope to the bottom of the barrel. Try and find an even and flush place for your caliper to go. So I'm getting 4.39 inches. I'm going to measure one more time just to be sure. So we'll just call it 4.4. So we take 4.4, we subtract half of our barrel thickness, which is 0.333, and then we subtract half of our scope thickness, which is 0.6, and that leaves us with 3.467. So the direct center between our scope and our barrel is 3.467 inches. Let's crank up 3.46. Close enough. And let's just kind of eyeball. So that's about half the barrel, and that's about half the scope. So just kind of a quick verification that we did our math right. So for now, we're pretty much done with the back of our book. We're going to flip to the front, and we are going to go to the range and shoot our first 100 rounds. This is what I personally like to record when I go shooting. The date, temperature outside, humidity, direction of fire, wind. These are all data points that you can get just off of your phone. You don't need a super crazy ballistics solver, calculator, anemometer, all that other insanity. All of this information is general information that will actually be in the weather setting of your iPhone or Android. For the sake of the video, let's pretend that I'm shooting where I'm at right now. It's 47 degrees. It is abnormally sunny. So we scroll down. Humidity is 62%, which is a lot lower than it typically is around here. We're sitting at 29.9 inches of mercury. We have a north-northwest direction of wind of 4 miles an hour. And that's pretty much all you need to know and write down. Shots 1 through 100 are your break-in shots. You want to get a really good coating of copper in your barrel before you actually start taking velocity. After your first 100 shots is when you start chronographing. You want your rifle to be as cold as it would be had you not shot it that day. When metal is heated, it expands. There is a lot of friction happening inside of your barrel as you're shooting. Your expanded barrel is going to give you a different point of impact than a cold barrel. Your cold barrel, cold bore, first round shots are going to be the most important. Because we don't care how accurate you can be a few shots in. The most important shot is the first one out of a cold barrel. So your first chronographed 20 shots, go ahead and shoot them as you would normally. Let's say 1 round every 5 seconds. Now this is where things get tedious. 121 through 140, you need to have your barrel cool between each shot. And that could mean 10, 15, 20 minutes between shots. It's important that you get an average of a cool barrel just simply for the fact that your first shot may be a life or death shot. And you don't want your average of what your barrel was when it was hot, because the drag on the bullet, because of the expanded metal in the barrel, is going to change. So your cold bore shot should theoretically be slower than a hot barreled shot. So we're looking at these imaginary numbers, pretending that I actually chronographed each of these shots. We are going to add them all up and divide them by however many shots we took. That's how you get the sum. Let's pretend that that equated to 2563. Now, with all of this information, you can start using a ballistics computer. No, you do not need to buy a Kestrel. For the purpose of this build, something like an actual ballistics computer with an anemometer and everything else built into it is kind of overkill, and we are focusing on keeping this rifle just being pretty much all you need for information. So let me show you how to use all of this information to get an actual firing solution. Hornady.com. We're going to go over to calculators. Name for calculation. I'm going to do SCAR 17. Black. Standard or metric, that's up to you. Maximum range. We are going to scroll this to 800 yards. Interval. I personally like to do 50, but for taping this to a rifle, we're just going to do 100. Okay, ballistics coefficient. How do we find this out? Well, let's look at our ammo. Right there on the box, it's telling us that it's using a 168 Sierra Match King Bowtail hollow point. So we are going to go to Sierra's website and see what the ballistics coefficient for their bullet is. SierraBullets.com, products, bullets, rifle bullets, and we are going to go down to 308. We're going to find the 168 grain hollow point boat tail. So here we have our bullet, and if we scroll down, 0.462 is going to be our ballistics coefficient, and that is going to be on the G7 drag scale. Pretty much any company that advertises their ballistic coefficient is going to give you the option of G1 or G7, but if they only list one, you can just assume that it's going to be G7. All right, back to Hornady's website, and let's double check, make sure. 0.462. 0.462. Velocity. What did I make up? 2563. Bullet weight. It's 168. Zero range. Okay, we zeroed at 100 yards. Sight height. Remember this? 3.467. 3.467. I personally like to have all of these checked. Now we're going to hit calculate. All right, and there we go. At 400 yards, we are traveling at 1,865 feet per second. We have dropped 36.9 inches at 400 yards. So our come up in MOA would be 8.8, but we're using mils. You can use MOA if you choose. So our come up in mils is 2.6. Let's look all the way out at 800 yards. This is where we start reaching the transonic barrier. So we're at 1,318 feet per second. We're still hitting with over 640 foot-pounds of energy, which is on par with some of the Magnum pistols, so it'll definitely do its job. We are dropping 239.4 inches. Our come up in MOA is 28.6, or our come up in mils is 8.3. So this chart tells us everything we need to know. Alright, so we clicked view cheat sheet and it gave us this. We have our range, trajectory, come up in MOA, and come up in mils. So when you hit print, you take this and it ends up being about the size of a business card, and you tape it to the side of your rifle. If someone is 700 yards away, we need to come up 6.6 mils. It's as simple as that. All right, let's simplify this without having to use our turrets or anything else. Come up in mils. Let's make a 600-yard shot. Calls for 5.1 mils. Okay? Here's a rough drawing of my reticle. So, this is your center crosshair. This is what you were looking at and putting on your 100-yard target. You have to know what each one of these marks represents for your specific reticle. On mine, each mark is 1 mil. Each mark is also exactly 0.2 mils thick, so you can use that as a unit of measurement. So when it says 5.1, I know that each one of my hash marks is 0.2 thick. So I go down to the fifth one and add essentially half of the thickness of one of those lines at 600 yards. So that would give me my 5.1. So now we look at 800 yards, but I only have 5. What do you do? All right, so our 800-yard shot requires 8.3 mils. Well, we only have 5. So there's 2 ways you could do this. You could hold 5 and add 3.3, or because you were smart and after you zeroed your rifle, you put your 0 line back to the center of the index. So we know that each click up, which is going to be counterclockwise, is 0.2 milrads. So we know that 5 equals 1 mil. Or we can just look at the hash marks. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so it's 8.3. Well, there's 8.2. There's 8.4. Do you go to 8.2 or 8.4? I personally would rather hit a little high than a little low. Now let's do it the other way. Okay, so we are holding on 5. Now let's dial in 3.3. Okay, there's 3.2.4. So now you have this 5 that you're holding over plus your 3.4. To me, it's a lot quicker to start from 0. Look at my 800 yards, 8.3, give this a twist until I get to 8, and then crank in that 0.4. After you make your shot, go back to 0 and go about your business. So now that you have this information, you can print that card out, tape it to your rifle, so now you have a platform where you can engage a target from 0 all the way out to 800 yards. Okay, that's all fine and great, but how do we figure out how far away they are? Well, this is where the biggest perk of using a milliradian comes in play. This is where we start getting into the fun stuff of weaponizing mathematics. That's right, liberals, we can weaponize anything and you can't ban it. So, target size in inches. This has to be something that we know. What is something that's standard? Well, in the case of this video, it's going to be a human torso. The standard and average person is 40 inches and 20 inches across, from belt line to throat and from nipple to nipple. It's usually 40 by 20. And you multiply that by our magic number, which is 27.8. 40 times 27.8 equals 1,112. Now we divide that by the target size in mils, and what this means is when I'm zoomed in at 6 power, how many mils of my scope are you taking up? Well, 1, 2. This is their neck, this is their belt line. They're taking up exactly 2 mils. Okay? Does that make sense? So if they're taking up to this line, that would be 3 mils, 4 mils, so on, or less. So, target size in inches, 40 inches, multiply that by 27.8, you get 1,112. You divide that by your target size in mils. So, 1,112 divided by 2 is 556. So they are roughly 556 yards away. So if we look at our printout that we just did, for 500 yards, it's 3.7. For 600 yards, it's 5.1. So the difference between 5 and 600 yards is exactly 0.4 mils. So if we split that and make it 0.2 for right around 550, 556, we end up with 3.9. But I'm going to round it and just call it 4. So we hold 4 mils over our target and we get a 550 yard hit. Last one. Target size in inches. 40 inches times 27.8, it's 1,112, divided by the target size in mils. Let's say they take up 4.2 mils. So we type in 1,112 divided by 4.2 equals 264.7. So the difference between 2 and 300 yards is about 1 mil. 200 yards is 0.6 mils and 300 yards is 1.5 mils. So extrapolate between those two, find the center between that, and that's roughly 250 yards. And err on the side of just a little over, and it should get you to about 260-ish yards. That's how you weaponize mathematics, that's how you use your ballistic solver, and that's how, if you don't have a rangefinder, which you shouldn't have to bring one with you, if you have this solution, at the very least, if you're horrible at math, bring a calculator, but you could do all this on paper. Once you have this information, you start looking at ballistics coefficients of 308 and realize, man, I'm really limited to 800 yards because, I'm entering transonic barrier at 800. So, what's next? Well, let's take a look at 6.5 Creedmoor. Yeah, that gets out there further, but it doesn't really hit as hard as a 30 caliber bullet. Okay, well, what's next? I don't know, 300 Remington Ultra Magnum, or 300 Win Mag, or my favorite, 338 Lapua. Or let's step it up even further because we want to be able to disable a car at 2 miles. Let's look at 50 BMG, or 408 Chi-Tac, 416 Barrett. It gets addicting really, really, really quickly. Depending on the success or failure of this video, I will go into longer range shooting if you guys want. We could get into stuff all the way out to 2,000, 2,500 yards. It's up to you. If you guys like the content that you've seen, please like, share, subscribe. I put a lot of thought into these videos and I try and keep them as simple as possible. Not saying that you guys don't really have the know-how, I'm just saying that I would rather give small amounts of information first to kind of get your feet wet, so if it's something that you're actually into, you can explore further. This is by no means an end-all video on long-range shooting or long-range work, quote-unquote. This is just kind of the basic intro of what you could be getting into. If you guys want to start seeing longer range stuff on my channel, please let me know. It's something that I do more than pistol or anything else. It's my passion, my hobby, everything from reloading to you name it, I do it all. I hope this was helpful and beneficial to some of you guys. Hopefully this will inspire you to get a long range platform and start writing stuff down, taking in information, and seeing where that takes you. As always, I really appreciate you guys' time. I appreciate the comments. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next segment.